welcome. Today we're going to be discussing the Catholic Church's involvement in World War II.
To understand the Church during World War II must be explained first. World War II was known as the most destructive war in all of history. There is no certain date agreed on for when World War II started, but the most known is September 1st, 1939, when Germany invaded Poland, which led Britain and France to declare war on Hitler's Nazi state in retaliation. Most people think about Hitler and the Holocaust when talking about World War II, but reality is that World War II consisted of much more. From the invasion of Poland until the war ended with Japan's surrender in August 1945, multiple nations were at war with each other, some fighting for the ultimately victorious Allies, and some for the Axis.
There are several different viewpoints on Catholic involvement in World War II. Some claim that the Church was actively involved and provided aid, while others argue that the Catholic Church gave virtually no help to the oppressed during the war. Gerhard Regner and Rudolf Verba, Jews who pleaded with the Vatican, say that they received virtually no help from the institution. In fact, many of the persecuted Jews felt as though the Church turned a blind eye to the horrific transgressions against them. Supporters of the Catholic Church state that churches and other Catholic institutions were used as refuges for oppressed Jews and that as much aid as possible was given to the needy as was able to be provided at the time. Depending on your perception of the situation, one could view priests and other clergy's involvement as representatives of the Vatican, while others may be more inclined to believe the priests were individual actors providing aid separately from the Vatican's influence.
The Holocaust confronted Christian leaders at this time and after 1945 with grave and ethical theological questions. The first one was, how is it possible for 6 million Jews to be murdered by the citizens of a nation that was predominantly Christian? 2. How did the Christian churches elsewhere in Europe and in the United States respond to the persecution and genocide of the Jews at this time? Next, they wondered, how have they dealt with the legacy of the history since the end of the war? And how has the Holocaust affected Christian teachings? And lastly, how have the questions been addressed within the interfaith of the Jewish-Christian relationships?
World War II started while the world was still recovering from the Great Depression. Germany was expanding under the control of Adolf Hitler, while Japan was also reaching new territories. Hitler found power and followers by using the Jews as a scapegoat, blaming them for Germany's poverty and loss of land.
Okay, so please state your name, birth, and where you were born.
Peggy Belcher, born in Manhattan, USA, Harlem.
When?
In the 1930s, early 30s.
I was born in 1929 in Poland. The name is Suwałk, the city. When the war broke out on Friday, we were the first city to be bombed because we were near the German border. In a few days, the German occupied our city, and they picked up the Jews and sent them to another city.
The Church's official statement on World War II followed the Holy See. The Holy See is the ecclesiastical jurisdiction of the Catholic Church in Rome and the central point of reference for the Catholic Church everywhere. The Church's choice to remain neutral was formed in an effort to keep an environment where the Church could practice easily. The Holy See preferred disclosed conciliation and diplomacy attempts towards fascist movements rather than direct opposition. When the quest of complete genocide of the Jews became more obvious, Pius remained neutral and did not want to associate himself with the Allied declarations against the Nazis. However, he did promote humanitarian aid, but was vague about the recipients. As the Holy See became more willing to assist, the Pope remained neutral on the persecutions until the end. The Vatican did not support Nazism or the Soviet Union, nor did they have a particular hostility to the Jews. The Vatican's hope was to limit the global conflict where possible, and above all, to protect the influence and standing of the Church as an independent voice. While the Pope and Holy See feared the Church's safety if they voiced any opposition, many individual Christians worked to stop the detrimental effects of the Holocaust.
During the time of World War II, Christians were still living in Germany, many of whom suffered under Hitler. In 1940, over 200,000 Christians were prisoners in Nazi concentration camps. At the start of the war in 1939, the Vatican declared neutrality to avoid being drawn into the conflict. Sadly, during this time, the Nazis imprisoned and at times executed Catholic clergy, monks, and nuns not compliant to Nazi ideology. The Church fought back by using convents, monasteries, and the Vatican to hide Jews and other targeted by the Nazis to be exterminated.
So who actually aided the Jews during the Holocaust? Well, there are a bunch of countries that aided them. Some were Netherlands, Poland, Greece, France, Belgium, Denmark, Bulgaria, Portugal, Spain, Lithuania, Albania, Finland, Italy, China, and Bolivia. Well, technically the Vatican did aid them, but because Pope Pius ordered them to be very discreet about it, not a lot of Jews actually saw their aid up front, which is where a lot of the controversy comes from. Now, Poland's aid to the Jews was extremely limited because they were the only country that actually had a gag order saying that if they did aid the Jews, there would be a death penalty for any that were involved. Now, individual priests also worked to help the Jewish people, along with individual lay Christians. But just like the Jews, they suffered going to the concentration camps and were also killed for helping the Jewish people by the Nazis.
A concentration camp is like this. They take all the Jews together. We're not allowed to only in a certain section, like in an area where we lived. We got another beating. They broke my back. Till today I have trouble with my back. The life was, you can't describe what the life is. You see, they treat you, you're not allowed to talk to each other.
The activities of Pope Pius XII during World War II are not clear. There are positive and negative facts known about Pope Pius XII during his reign that brought controversy on his role in World War II during this time.
There's an ongoing debate about Pope Pius II, who was the Pope during World War II. Both supporters and critics of Pope Pius II agree that the involvement of the Church in World War II is still being further explored and expounded on. Critics of Pope Pius II claim that he sat idle while many Jews were persecuted and slaughtered, even going so far as to claim that he was involved in the deportation of about 1,000 Jews from Rome. He never gave any explicit statements on the Church's positions, but there were reasons for this. He also certainly never supplied any outward support for Nazism. Sister Pascalina, among Pius II's supporters, defended him, saying that he meant to write on the Jewish situation, couldn't because of the Holland incident. Basically, the Holland incident occurred because Dutch priests in Holland outwardly spoke against the persecution of the Jews, and because of this, they were persecuted as Catholics. This was actually a common occurrence during this time, and because of this, the Pope stayed his hand, wanting to protect Catholics, active Catholics at the time. The Vatican does have essays on this matter, though they're written in arduous original language and they're very hard to understand.
Pope Pius XII aided the Jews during World War II.
I think he, at that time, did very little because we were also involved in combat with two other nations, one being Japan and one being Italy.
Do you think that if he would have told the Nazis to cease and desist on behalf of the Church, do you think that would have had a greater impact on the Jews?
I just don't know how influential Pope Pius was with Hitler.
The Catholic Church didn't do nothing. The Catholic Church knew when the Pope Pius XII, he knew everything. But they put pressure on him when he said he doesn't want to get involved.
Pius XII was known to take action and protect the Jews, or stay neutral to help diplomacy. But in other issues, Pope Pius XII would turn on the Jews to save himself first. For example, the Vatican hid 477 Jews, Another 4,238 were hidden in the church monasteries and convents during the war. But also, he never declared it a sin for Catholics to participate in the slaughter. Pope Pius XII showed unreliable and sketchy traits.
One founding assembly in Amsterdam said in 1948 that we call upon the churches we represent to denounce anti-Semitism, no matter what its origin, as absolutely irreconcilable with the profession and practice of the Christian faith. Anti-Semitism is a sin against God and man. Furthermore, the Council's Third Assembly in New Delhi in 1961 explained that in Christian teaching, the historic events which led to the crucifixion should not be presented as to impose upon the Jewish people of today's responsibilities, which must fall on all humanity, not on one race or community.
They believe the Jews killed Jesus. And still today, you have a lot of churches preaching that.
Similarly, the House of Bishops of the Episcopal Church in the United States said in 1964 they released a statement rejecting the imputation of decide to the Jews, stating that this is a tragic misunderstanding of the inner significance of the crucifixion. Now, in the Roman Catholic Church realm, Pope John the 23rd said in 1958 he decided to remove the phrase the perfidious Jews from the Good Friday liturgy. Now, this is a big thing because it changed the way Christians viewed the Jews. He released a statement saying that even though the Jewish authorities and those who followed their lead pressed for the death of Christ, neither all Jews indiscriminately at that time nor Jesus today can be charged with the crimes committed during his passion. It is true that the church is new to the people of God, yet the Jews should not be spoken of as rejected or accursed as if this followed from the Holy Scripture.
Till today, remember, till today, I never slept all night. Never. You have nightmares. Of 3, 4 o'clock at night, I start screaming. I wake myself up, I go out, and I sit down and relax.
There is much of the church and Germany that remains unknown during the time of World War II. To this day, there are still things that are being discovered of the terrible history of Catholic and Protestant Germany during World War II. There are a lot of church members, priests, and nuns who have stayed silent to this day about the facts they know that happened with the church during this time.
You have to help people. You cannot be for yourself. You can't take 1 or 2 children, put together a group, collect some money, send some food to Africa, send some food, medicine. One child can organize another child, make 10 children. Another group makes more, collect something. Each child, $1 a week. What the heck is $1 a week for a child? Nothing. $1 a week if you take 100 children is $100. For $100, you can buy a lot of medicine, a lot of